Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Aero UI Ask the Expert session. My name is Victor Foreman. I'm a Director of Product Management at Relativity, heavily focused on the effort to bring the Aero UI to life. And we're really excited about the session we've got in store for you today. Really, this session is about giving you the opportunity to learn more about Aero and really spend a lot of time asking your questions and getting those questions answered. So we've got a great panel with us today that's going to be ready to answer any questions you may have. This is all about helping to get you ready for the Aero launch coming later this summer in August. As I mentioned, we've got a great panel of engineers, folks from our user experience team, as well as people from our product management team, all focused on Aero UI. You can see their faces here. As we go, what I would encourage you to do is use the question box that's available in the platform here, and ask your questions as we go. The way we're going to structure this today is we'll break into several different sections with different presenters. They'll give you a brief overview, and then we'll take questions as we go. And when we talk about the Aero UI, we're really talking about 5 key areas, and that's how we're going to organize our session today. So in a moment, I'm going to hand it off, and Justin will talk us through some of the changes that are coming with respect to modern aesthetics, as well as speed and performance. And then we'll shift gears from there after taking a few questions and talk about some of the exciting changes in the next-gen viewer. And we'll finish up looking at the new workflow-based navigation, as well as some of the exciting changes that are coming to improve and automate workflows. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Justin.
Thank you, Victor. So my name is Justin Doherty. I'm a product manager at Relativity. So today I want to walk through a little bit on modern aesthetics and light speed performance. So in terms of aesthetics, first we can hit on the theme of use of color. So if blue happens to be your favorite color, there's a lot about the pre-Aero version of Relativity that you might enjoy. However, if you prefer a more diverse color palette, you will be happy, we hope, to know that we've reduced a lot of this visual noise that exists with the overuse of blue. And we've also established a lot of key principles that you're going to see persisting throughout the user experience. So one such principle when it comes to use of color. Sorry, waiting for the slide. One such example is with the navigation theme. So we're using orange as our primary indicator now for navigation to tell users where you're located within the system and where you can go. So within this screenshot, you can see that we're highlighting in the left sidebar that orange is indicating that we are in the workspace admin section. Via the top nav, it's letting us know that we are on the field page. And lower within the page, even in subsections, you can see that we are in field settings, but there's also other tabs behind it that we can get access to. So we can expand this further then to show that we have a primary use of colors as another theme within Aero. So previously on the top navigation bars, you would see save and next, cancels, all with solid blue colors across all those buttons. So we're really honing down that overuse of blue and using blue to highlight specific clickable actions that we want users to take that are our primary focus on the page. So we can see this in the top bar. We can also see this portrayed in the console displays that you see in many objects on the sidebars. So in console displays, as opposed to having multiple buttons all blue, we now have a hierarchical relationship in terms of primary actions, then secondary buttons, and tertiary buttons below to give real structure to the page. Next theme we can hit on is use of space. So within the pre-Aero version of Relativity, we didn't really have much in the terms of separation between logical places and functional areas of the page versus having everything essentially kind of grouped all together in one large experience. Whereas what we've done within Aero is we've introduced a lot of spacing variables. What we're trying to do here is to create some clearer separation between the functional parts of Relativity, and to do this to drive focus then, make it easier then for you to find, end users to find what it is they're after. And we know there are those of you that are really valuing still a data dense view, and you want to have as much data as possible on the screen whenever you can. So we are keeping that in mind, absolutely. And so as we work towards having more uniform spacing, we are balancing that also with data density. And you'll see this play out in terms of us persisting the ability on a list page, for example, to still maintain that compressed view. And we're going to continue to hone and tune this as the Aero program evolves. All right, last theme on the UI front, I want to talk briefly about components. So when I say components in this aspect, I'm talking about UI components. So a UI component at a very atomic level, think about a button, think about a drop-down field. So in this example, this is the pre-Aero version of our drop-down field. We found many opportunities in many components to make improvements. And this is an example here of where this drop-down suffered from a little bit of not clearly showing when you type into this type ahead field, what field you're actually interacting with. So by that I mean, you're interacting in this case, the object type field, and the type ahead field shows below it, which is a little confusing because it might look like I'm interacting with the field type section, but you're not. So this is something that we were able to easily then clean up in the Aero UI. So now you have alignment between the drop-down field, the type ahead filtering, and the actual field that you're interacting with. One additional component I want to highlight here is when we've previously been using UIs to handle yes/no fields. And we've done this previously by implementing the drop-down effect. So you come to a field, you expand the drop-down, and then you get the options. And what we've evolved to is a more modern UI component, which is a switch. Oops, apologies for that. Let me go back. Sorry about this, folks. Slide troubles. Well, hopefully you caught it, and I'll move on to performance in a section. But I wanted to highlight the switch. Think about your mobile device and how you have many yes/no options, on/off toggle options. We've created that component, and that component now is available within multiple pages within Relativity. And what this provides you is not only a very intuitive option to interact and set a field to on/off, yes/no, but as you get to then pages where you have multiple, it becomes very easy to scan that page to distinguish what is on and what is off. The last thing I want to hit on is performance. Now, we've shared some UI enhancements that we're doing, but we want to make sure, if it's not clear, that Aero is not just this coat of paint, right? Another big pillar of a great user experience is the performance, and performance is baked into Aero. So we're introducing a lot of updates in our UI architecture level that are going to enable very quick performant navigations across different aspects of Relativity. So when I say that, think about navigation from a list to a reviewer, or a list page to a form page, or anywhere you're going between any of this collection of pages. These are areas where we're really honing in to get to sub-second page load times across these. So no matter where you go on your journey throughout Relativity, you're getting that very performance experience. So with that, I'll stop for questions. Again, apologies for the slide lagginess. Hopefully you got some value out of this, but we'll take some questions.
Thanks, Justin. Looks like we've got a few questions coming in, and if anyone does have any more questions about some of the UI elements Justin talked about or performance, please add them into the question box. Kyle Disterheft is with us. Kyle's group product manager who's helping lead on the Aero effort. Kyle, I wonder if you could help answer this question. For the last UI update, you had the option to choose the new UI or the classic UI for a certain period of time. Are you doing the same for Aero, or is it that once released, all users have to use Aero?
Yeah, thanks, Victor. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone on the line. For the Aero UI, we will have only one specific toggle for a part of Aero, and that's for the viewer. So users will be able to toggle back to what we're calling the classic or the HTML5 document viewer. Users will not be able to toggle back any other parts of Aero. So once the upgrade to Aero happens, you're on the Aero UI for good, so to speak. But again, users, if they have the permission, will be able to, in their settings, toggle back to the HTML5 or the classic document viewer.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Hey, Justin, question for you about objects and save and next. Will all objects have save and next?
So I guess a couple parts to that. All objects that have had save and next in the current version of Relativity will continue to have those. And we will continue to have those in any RDO custom objects that you create as well. So the UI updates to those then will persist across both those areas in terms of objects such as fields and classes or matters and whatnot, but then also any of your RDOs.
Great, thanks, Justin. Another one, Justin, that I think is probably best for you. I think when you were showing the slide with around performance and you had pictures of various screens, we had the terms list and forms. Is that replacing the use of the terms view and layout, just sort of, I guess, in the Relativity vernacular?
They're definitely synonymous. So when you think of lists, think of views interacting with those. You think of forms, think of layouts. It's a little bit different on the architectural side, I would say, in that views kind of enable you to, for example, apply filters and et cetera to the list, where the list itself is more of the UI rendering. A bit more on the technical side, I guess, but they are synonymous. So we don't mean to cause any confusion about that, but just bear in mind lists, views, layouts are forms.
Great. I wonder, this next question around performance and in event handlers, Robert Cucinato, who's our Director of Engineering, is on the line. This might be a good one for you to take, Robert. How is performance impacted in Aero with event handlers? Is it going to be faster than current?
Event handlers themselves will not necessarily be faster. That's code that third parties or yourself can enable an event handler. So we're mostly focused on performance tuning the pages themselves and the code that we control. So we're not really focusing on event handler performance tuning initially.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Hey, Kyle, here's one. I know that you've spent a fair bit of time on which web browsers will the Aero release, will be supported in the Aero release?
Yeah, thanks, Victor. We're really excited that with the launch of Aero in Relativity 1, we will be fully supporting the new version of Microsoft Edge browser. This is the version built from Chromium. We will not be supporting the previous version of Edge, but we'll be supporting the new version built from Chromium. Additionally, we are planning to put Internet Explorer 11 into a new category of browser support we're calling limited support. So users will still be able to use Internet Explorer 11. They just may see some styling issues or other smaller issues related to Internet Explorer 11 being a legacy browser. But again, to sum up, with Aero, we're adding support for the new Edge Chromium browser, and we're moving Internet Explorer 11 support into unlimited support. No changes to our support of Safari, Firefox, and Chrome.
Great, thanks, Kyle. And I think we've got time for one more question in this section before we move on. Thank you all for all the questions that are coming in. I do see a couple related to the timing of Aero, both for Rel 1 as well as for questions about Aero for the on-prem or server experience. So why don't I just take those? If you watched the keynote address from Chris Brown this morning, or a little earlier today, actually, you saw the announcement that Aero will be coming to all Relativity 1 instances in August. of this year. As far as for server, the decision has not yet been made as far as the content or the timing of the 2021 server release. That decision will be coming in Q3 of this year of 2020, and we'll be communicating that out to everyone. With that, I'm going to shift gears a bit, and we'll have Tom Brophy take control and talk us through the new viewer experience. Tom?
Thank you, Victor. Thanks, Justin. Hi, Tom Brophy here. I'm the product manager on Review, and I want to introduce you to the next-gen viewer. So the first thing you'll notice here definitely is the change in the UI. We made a pretty concerted effort to give the whole review interface a cohesive design system, more real estate for the document, more real estate for you to fold and manage how you see fit. We want to make it and keep it familiar, but focus on helping the interface have less time for you thinking, more time doing and acting. What you can't see here is the performance. And just as Justin mentioned, a big focus of this project was on performance. Jump ins, jump outs, dock to dock. Doesn't matter the navigation, we want it to be instantaneous. Done a lot of work to make sure that the viewer performance is as fast as possible, because we've actually taken it out and made a completely different interface. We've a different application. That's how we can get the speeds that we want. For extensibility, another thing you can't see, but it's built with that in mind from the outset. So we want all the various viewer integrations, the extensions that you use to accomplish your workflows, to be even more easy and more supported as we put APIs around everything to make sure that everything that you need to do with your workflow with the viewer can be accomplished. Now, we made some investments in the UI for improving the UX in certain review workflows that we focused on. You might notice that the document list is on the left. We did that because a vertical list of items is easier to navigate, sort, filter with a vertical orientation. We've allowed you to be able to collapse cards to focus more on the content that you wanted. So you can collapse the document list, you can collapse the coding panel. Everything can be collapsed and expanded in a more cohesive way. We've taken a lot of the document actions that you use rarely, and we've put them in a dropdown, a document actions dropdown right next to the control number. We've taken those toggle options. No one could ever tell if it was on docked or standalone. We've put them in a dropdown where you can easily see with the readable text as to what to do and how you're accomplishing that. Our goal here is not to pick a piece of the UI to put content. It's for you to be able to pop out any of these pieces of content, any of these cards. And so we want that to be a cohesive element across the UI as well. We split up related items and history cards so you can better navigate and distinguish between those items in that bottom right corner. Highlighting is another big area we focused on. We wanted to make sure we reconciled the advanced search highlighting capabilities between the native and text viewers. That was a big gap in the classic viewer, but in the new next generation viewer, we've standardized on the same technology. And so you'll be able to see the same highlighting capabilities for proximity, stemming, fuzziness, regular expressions in general in the text viewer as you will in the native viewer. And you'll be able to highlight those things as well. We introduced the ability to select, as you might be able to see here in the screenshot, a specific set or term without having to deactivate or uncheck all the other highlight sets or terms just to navigate that individual term. You want to focus on the area you want to focus on, and you can jump to it right away. We also introduced the ability to show thumbnails with the native view when pagination supports that, so that you can see other highlighting hits as well, and the utility of the thumbnail viewer for paginated native formats as well. We're also going to introduce a recent searches area for the highlight UI, where that's sort of your personal sandbox, where you can test out various search that you want and see it highlighted, and you'll get to see that persist from document navigation to document navigation. Moving on. We've also introduced and formalized a number of new document views. You're familiar with the thumbnail view, of course. We formalized that as a separate view or drawer in the next generation viewer. We also have hidden content on the far right, but we also have our SMS views where you're able to filter based off of timeline or custodians or participants. These are all different views that the next generation viewer supports. So you can navigate your content more quickly and focus on the areas that you want to. And how are we making all this possible? Well, the whole review application that we rebuilt is based off of a fundamental idea, and that idea is a common element for content. And the word for that we're using is cards. So the review interface is really just a composition of many applications. The viewer, the coding layout, the document list, all these things are sort of different applications that we're representing as cards. Both internal and external integrations, ETV, or other applications you use that are fundamental to your workflow, like translation apps or redaction apps. That was the extensibility, and both front end and back end of the new review interface is something we had top of mind. So we built a cohesive front end framework that we made sure a number of different applications can all play nice with each other, both on the back end and front end. So thank you. Any questions that you might have?
Thanks, Tom. I got a bunch of questions coming in, as expected, about the viewer experience, and I would encourage everyone attending to continue to submit those questions. Let's see where we can start here. Tom, maybe you can answer this one about large documents. How will the Aero UI viewer handle large extracted text documents which span multiple pages that need to be navigated in the current viewer?
I'm glad you asked that question because we've done away with that. We no longer need to break or chunk up the text stream into paginated forms that have no correlation to the native. So the new text viewer in the Aero document viewer just has a continuous stream of that content. You won't be able to, or you won't accidentally miss that content because you're on the text viewer and you had not seen, even though you went through probably 10 chapters worth of information without noticing that you had to scroll to a next page, which is really an arbitrary page. That notion is gone. It's just one page now.
Great. Tom, a question, I guess, about the coding layout and coding documents and some efficiencies there. Is there any plan to introduce a new single button which reviewers would click or use to do copy from previous and save and next with a single click instead of two different clicks?
We're in the process of soliciting pretty targeted feedback in that area. We want to make sure that we're optimizing not just for performance from a technical standpoint, but performance from a UX standpoint. And there's been a lot of feedback as to how we can make better use of a history or, replay sort of various common coding actions. And that's something that we're actively engaged in. That is not something that we've shipped yet, but we have many ideas and we would love some feedback specifically about your workflow. Maybe that's something that we can introduce.
Great, thanks, Tom. Tom, can you talk about the preview option that exists in the document list view? The question is, in the document list view, do you have the document preview option before clicking into the document? Or maybe this is now not necessary since it's so fast to jump straight into documents. So maybe you could talk about that and kind of the purpose behind the document preview.
Yeah, the document preview feature is something that's, historically we've achieved in the list view via the standalone viewer. This, however, allows you to have a list view with the preview. It's sort of a fundamental review workflow where I'm navigating a list of items and I have a preview of a document. we take that obviously further in the review interface, where you can actually perform actions within that document and within the viewer. But the utility is the same, because in the viewer, we also have a doc list where you're able to navigate your review queue. It's more targeted, more focused, but I don't believe it negates the use case of mostly focusing on a list of things and using either widgets or dashboards or whatever your workflow to determine what is that document set that I should be looking at, and then confirming periodically with the preview. Whereas in the review interface, that's more targeted. This is your document set. This is what you're trying to navigate, because you're more focusing on doing activities with that document rather than curating or setting up that document. But you're right. It is sort of both use cases in both situations.
Great. Yeah, nice to have that flexibility. So lots of questions still coming in for you, Tom, and the viewer. How about this one? Related to the doc list that you showed in the viewer. Can a user still move the doc list to span the top of the screen horizontally as it currently can?
So our goal, and this will be available in the general release, is that any one of those cards can be popped out. So whatever orientation, we don't want to make that decision for you. People have various types of screens and displays available to them, and it's more expensive for us to decide this will forevermore lay here. Some prefer a more landscape perspective for their list view so that they can see all the fields and the columns. Totally fine. Pop out that card and you'll be able to orient it to focus on that content the way you need it to.
Great. I think we've got time here for one more viewer-related question before we move on. And I know there are a lot of questions. If we have time at the end, we'll take some more, and certainly we'll follow up with answers to all these great questions that are coming in. Last one, Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about Relativity's short message format UI? Will that play nicely within the new Aero viewer, and any commentary you have there?
Sure. Yes, and actually the SMS viewer is a first citizen viewer within the new document viewer. We're in the process of rewriting it just as that feature came aboard. And so we prioritized making that one of our first viewers, actually, before we even had the native viewers. So yes, it'll work seamlessly with the new document viewer because it is part of that code base.
Great. Okay, thanks, Tom, for the content and for answering all those questions. We're going to shift gears again, and we're going to hand it off to Stacy. Stacy's going to kick us off talking about some of the workflow improvements that we'll see in the new Aero UI.
All right, thank you, Victor. I'm Stacy. I am the product manager for Aero tab navigation and header. Before I dive in with what to expect to see with regards to workflow-based navigation in Aero, let's talk a little bit about what you see today. I'm sure you've all seen a workspace similar to this one, where the tabs are similar to the one shown here. There's 18 primary tabs. Maybe you've seen one that has more than this. They don't appear to really have any methodology for the order in which they're displayed, and you probably have to click around a little bit just to see what you want to find. So we know that the current tab structure is difficult to navigate, has limited organizational capability, and sometimes has confusing groupings. We've set out to redesign navigation in Aero to fix these problems. I'm excited to introduce to you a new tab navigation system with a sleek, modern UI that will appeal to a wide range of users. We redesigned Aero header and tab navigation to deliver 3 key benefits to our users. First, the simplified, modern UI. Second, workflow-based navigation. And third, a more intuitive experience for a wide range of users. With that in mind, I will walk you through the key changes that you can expect to see when you get Aero. We have completely redesigned tab navigation to make Relativity easy to use and be more workflow driven. Key changes include, first, we're introducing a new left-hand navigation pane called the sidebar. This provides a few key benefits. Increased discoverability, so now you can have high visibility for your most frequently used tabs. We're also introducing icons to these sidebar tabs. So now you can just scan for your intended content and recognize the icon instead of having to search for the tab name. The introduction of the sidebar. Second, having some slide issues. The introduction of the sidebar adds a third level of hierarchy to the tabs. Even though we're adding this third level of hierarchy, it will make the end user experience simple. With 3 levels, users now have a greater ability to create broader groups of content, therefore minimizing the number of tabs on the screen at any one time. The horizontal tabs across the top of the screen are still called the tab strip, but now they are the level 2 and 3 tabs. So with these 3 levels, tabs can now be focused by workflows or even deprioritized in an advanced menu like you see on the screen. This creates a more intuitive and efficient experience for the user. We're also introducing a new concept called breadcrumbs, which you can see at the top of the screen. This tells you exactly where you're at in the system and operates as a folder path. So that can also help orient you and navigate you so that you know where you're at any time. Finally, we have an exciting new feature that we're introducing called the All Tabs menu, which you can access by clicking the hamburger menu at the bottom of the sidebar. When you click this icon, the All Tabs menu will appear, which contains every tab that a user has access to and is flagged as invisible. This menu will help declutter workspaces. Infrequently used tabs can now be deprioritized and accessed via the All Tabs menu, so you don't even have to have them exist as a tab on the tab strip or the sidebar at all. This feature, along with the third level of hierarchy, help drive an optionally advanced interface. That's all I have to show you now for Aero tab navigation, but I'll hand it off to my colleague Julie to talk about search term reports.
Thank you, Stacy. So what we'd like to do now is explain that in addition to some styling changes that you've been seeing, improvements to how people will navigate in Relativity, we've also improved the way that administrators will actually work with terms in search terms reports. And so let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what that would look like. So you'll see right away the Aero stylings have been applied to search term reports. What you'll also note is that you have a couple of options here. You could continue to add terms as you've always been able to do on a search terms report. But additionally, you're now going to have the ability to actually edit a term. So what you would simply do is choose the term that you want to edit, and you'll get a nice modal pop-up that's going to let you actually just modify that term. Previously, you would have had to delete and re-add this term in order to apply these kinds of changes. And when you did something like that, then things like your color choices also went away. Going forward, that won't be the case. You'll just make that modification, you'll hit apply, potentially keep the same color or change them, whatever you decide to do, and hit save. After you do that, you'll come back to your main list here. You'll see that you're given this nice message that's telling you, hey, you have an updated term. You're going to need to go ahead and run your pending terms to get that added into the counts for the number of hits. Another thing that we've done in addition to this administrative change is to make it easier for people who perhaps are not working from the search term reports tab to actually be able to see some of that search term information regarding the number of hits. So here what we've done is we went ahead and put the number of hits next to those terms right there in the field tree. So you don't even need to navigate to the search term reports tab to be able to see that. It's pretty straightforward, but we're really excited about the improvements that we've been able to make to how people will work with search terms going forward. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to my colleague, Chris, and he's going to walk you through some really cool updates that we have coming around how you're going to automate your workflow.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, my name is Chris Smith. I'm the product manager for our new automated workflows application. In Aero, automation will drive workflow efficiencies to get value out of the system faster. where users previously spent time to perform certain actions to keep the case moving forward, automated workflows will provide a mechanism for users to automate those actions. So let's take a quick look at what that's going to look like. With automated workflows, you'll be able to automate many manual actions, and you'll be able to configure them how you and your organization need. In this example, you can see one of the workflows that I can set up to automate. You may have already seen this from Keynote this afternoon, but automated workflows begins by first selecting a trigger to start. When the trigger is initiated, it will start the next actions that I have set up in my workflow. Each action that follows will automatically start once the previous action completes. That means when new documents are added into the workspace, I will no longer need to do any of the actions you see in this example. This workflow is set up to automatically update my DT search index, update my analytics index, and update the associated search term report and cluster visualization. Lastly, once all of my actions are completed, I can even specify who will receive the message to let them know when the automation is complete. Another great feature of automated workflows is the concept of standardization. If I have the same type of matter, which uses the same fields to index and the same key terms to use during my initial investigation, I can set all of this automation up in the template workspace that will completely remove any of the manual setup of the automated workflow during new workspace creation. All I need to do is select my template, create my workspace, and import documents. While the workflow I just showed provides a lot of value within the core review workflow to reduce that manual activity to ensure your users can perform discovery, we understand that there's a lot of opportunity to get more value out of the system. Our initial rollout will focus on review, but it won't stop there. There's additional triggers that users are looking for to customize specific workflows within the workspace. There's also actions that can be provided throughout various workflows, such as data QC, productions, legal hold, collections, and other areas across the entire EDRM and non-discovery based workflows. Additionally, providing an extensible automation platform for partners looking to integrate their own applications and workflows is really vital to the spirit of what automated workflows is. And it's not just a simple framework to automate core workflows, but an entire platform to build automation with any workflow you are performing in Relativity. And that is all I have. I believe we will start taking questions.
Thanks, Chris and Julie and Stacy. Great stuff. We're going to use most of the remaining time to take questions about some of the workflow changes that the team just described. We've got a few coming in related to automated workflows. Chris, why don't we send some of these your way? I think you touched on this a little bit about in terms of some of the capabilities that will be coming with launch and then coming a little bit later. Can you talk about, can one automate email threading and inclusive identification when loading new documents? Will those actions be available?
As far as the analytics space workflows, we are definitely targeting those next to include in our initial rollout. Our initial rollout will include DT search index builds, search term reports, and some initial triggers around import and manual run. The manual run will most importantly be for any error or troubleshooting resolution. But yes, analytics is definitely on the board for us to roll out as soon as we can post our initial rollout of automated workflows.
Great, and I think you touched on this one as well, Chris, around the ability to template the workflows. The question is, can I template the analytics actions, and I think you could expand this really to any of the actions, and then migrate them. The question is between instances, but maybe you want to talk about between workspaces as well as instances. What are the capabilities there?
Yeah, one of the core pieces that we want to definitely roll out with automated workflows is also pushing the concept of templating the objects that are going to be integrated in automated workflows. So any actions or triggers that would have settings or configurations on the objects are going to be a part of the requirements process for us developing automated workflows. So it's kind of like check the box. If you want to be an action integrated with automated workflows, you're going to need to support that object that you're going to be putting in as an action to be templatable and included in a relativity template. And that's really so you can set up those standard workflows, build those in a workspace template, and then that way when you create the workspace, the automation will already be there and you don't have to go in after creating the workspace to go manually perform any actions. As
Great.
far as the second piece of that around instances, I think that'll just be on the table and we'll need to do more discovery for that. But there is a whole ARM migration workflow, workspace transfer thing that we're also looking at as well.
Thanks, Chris. One more on automated workflows, and not sure if the spirit of this question is more of excitement or a little bit of caution and fear. Will automated workflow mean that I can run a workspace without having a workspace or case manager?
The automated workflows is going to be definitely tailored towards workspace admins and more administrative users. So I think it will be possible when we have with workspace templates and being able to set standard workflows that you might be able to not have an admin. But as far as the people that are going to be really building these workflows out and designing these and customizing them, whatever their organization and workflow requirements are, the admin will definitely be involved.
Great. Lots of automated workflow questions coming in. A couple around navigation. So I want to jump over to Stacy really quick, maybe to address a couple of these. Stacy, can you talk about the sidebar tabs? Will they be customizable or static? Are they locked in place? As well as just a general question, will we have total freedom to organize tabs or will they still be tied to applications?
Sure. So the sidebar is meant to be completely customizable by anyone who has privileges right now to modify tab order. So once you transition to Aero, it's a really good time to take a step back and think about how you want to customize your own template for your users. We know everyone uses Relativity and their own specific way. So it's a really good time to organize your workflows as you best see fit. The sidebar is completely customizable. You'll be able to select from 25 icons for the sidebar and adjust tabs as you'd like to see them.
Great. Not surprisingly, lots of automated workflow questions coming in. So I think I'm going to bounce it back to Chris for some more with a little bit of the time we have left. Chris, yeah, there you are.
I'm back.
Can automation be scheduled for a specific time of day?
Yes, so that's going to be another trigger. It's not going to be in our initial rollout of automated workflows. We're going to try and get that one done as well. But the idea is, so some of the available triggers is when you're building your automated workflow, you need to set the trigger, which will be the initial activity to then set off the other various actions that you have set up in the workflow. And scheduler or a scheduler is a trigger that we're looking at rolling out as well.
Great. And what's going to happen, Chris, if errors occur during any of the phases of an automated workflow?
So I think this is kind of a short-term, long-term, but as far as short-term, it's more around getting the notifications in place. So if an error occurs, you'll receive a notification from automated workflows, which will kind of provide you some troubleshooting steps, but that's why we're also including the manual run. So if you're expecting automation to kick off and there was an error encountered, you'll be able to go into the automated workflow that you have set up and manually execute it. And while having to go in kind of takes away the spirit of the automation, at least when you manually execute it, you'll only need to press one button as opposed to go to all the other objects that you have set up in your automated workflow.
Great, thanks. Let me just see if any other automated workflow related questions. I'm just checking this clock to see how we're doing on time as well. There are a few other questions that have come in, not specific to some of the content that we've shared, but a couple that I do want to have addressed by a couple members of the team. So one's around dashboard widgets, and one is around mass operations. So Alvin, who is a product manager that focuses on the list pages, I'm wondering if you could help with a couple of these. Can you talk about new dashboard widgets that are coming in the new UI?
Sure, Victor. So at the moment, no new dashboard widgets are coming in, but we are exploring applying styles, Aero styles for the Aero GA release. And one thing that we also are, as far as an enhancement to our dashboard widgets, is looking at providing consistent color usage on the choice fields that people are creating on the dashboards, but no firm timeline on that. But that's what we're looking at soon.
Okay, great. And there's a question about mass operations. Alvin, maybe you could take this one. Not so much about the functionality or the capability, but just is it still going to exist in the same location on the document list? Maybe you could just help quickly address that one.
Yes, definitely. The mass operation bar still exists in the same location, and you'll notice on the document list page, most of the all the functionality there still is in the typical locations that you see.
Great, thanks, Alvin. Okay, so we've just about come to the end of our time, and to wrap up, let's talk a little bit about getting ready for Aero UI. As we mentioned, I believe at the top, Aero UI is coming to all Relativity 1 instances in August of this year. Where are we right now? Well, as you know, we announced the new Aero UI last year at Relativity Fest Chicago, and since then the teams, some of the folks you've met here today, but many, many more behind the scenes, have been busy building the experience, designing it, validating it with customers. We've had 5 customers in what we call an advanced access program who actually have the initial version or initial cut of Aero UI in their production instances right now. They've been giving us a ton of great feedback that's helping us iterate and evolve the product forward. You'll start to see it in the preview environments, in your sandbox environments in June of this year. That'll give you a few months to kick the tires, experience it, and give us feedback as well during that period. And then, as I mentioned, coming in August. As we lead up to that point in time, there'll be a number of materials and touch points for you to get ready. We've created some quick reference guides, in particular around the new viewer experience, as well as some of the navigation experience. There'll be training videos, the documentation that you all are familiar with and know and love, as well as I mentioned, the preview environment. So in all, hopefully this has been informative, helpful for you to get a little bit deeper exposure into Aero UI. Lots more to come in terms of materials and touch points. And we thank you all for your time today and your attention. If everyone on the panel wouldn't mind turning on their cameras really quickly, microphones as well if you like, and do a quick wave. Goodbye to everyone. We appreciate everyone, and thanks for everyone who's been part of this today.